We've been seeing a lot of these AAA games, these major publishers come out with these games that they put years and time into development, millions and millions of dollars, and what we get is complete bollocks. So what's the answer to that? Well, there's a conversation that we should talk about, and this might be a little bit boring to some people, but it's a conversation about what AAA games should be doing in order to, basically save themselves for the future. So let's go straight into it. Now, this article comes to us from Aftermath. So it says major publishers can't keep making fewer, bigger games by Nathan Grayson. So he is a part of this conversation that we're going to talk about. So he says, starting the article out, by far, the biggest, most disheartening industry news of the week was WB's sudden closure of 3 studios, including Monolith. Now, there has to be some more reasons for that because Fear and Shadow of Mordor is an absolutely fantastic game. One game of the year. Fear, I don't know if y'all remember that. That was the one with like the creepy little girl. It had the horror elements basically within a shooter of super soldiers kind of thing. That was an absolutely great game. I think they actually, did they go on to do 3? I know they did at least 2. But I remember playing the first one. I was just like, holy crap. They gave me some jump scares in the middle of like just straight on action-packed shooter stuff. Now, while swinging the scythe and taking out Monolith's much anticipated Wonder Woman game, which is another thing. I mean, that's where this thumbnail comes from. Now, the company said it's now turning its focus to fewer but bigger franchises, which doesn't really make sense. Fewer but bigger. Well, Wonder Woman was pretty dadgum big, so why did you nix that? And that's just a question that I have right there. That would be a big franchise by my own estimation. And on the latest episode of Aftermath Hours, we talk about why this strategy, which might make Line go up in the short term, is ultimately a dead end. And yes, this is what they're basically doing right now. They've focused everything on the long term, but what they don't realize is that everything they put into their long-term games, not only the DEI stuff, but, just basically the old guard has been switched out for the new guard, and the new guard knows nothing about gaming. That's really the main crux of why most of this stuff is being failing. Now, going everything to the short term, it's not going to last, in my opinion. Now, there are ways that it could. You could find some little franchise in the rough, but by and large, if you're going to keep a studio company running, you need to, this is not the way to go. So they begin the episode by accidentally bursting the dam on another wellspring of Riley lore, perhaps the wildest. Before we all move on to a discussion of more sobering matters, the closure of Monolith and 2 other studios has proven eager to dumpster promising projects. Beyond the world of games in recent years, but what proportion of this sickness is specific to the company, and where does it overlap with the gaming industry's own mismanagement epidemic? That's the thing that I was talking about. The mismanagement, top to bottom, everywhere in between, the hiring processes, who they put in creative control of these things. That's what's really tanking the industry. It's not necessarily that they're going for big name projects. That's not what it's going. That's not really what it's about. So here is an excerpt from their conversation, and this is where they specifically hone in on this. So I will. This is where I said it's going to get maybe tiny, a little bit boring. I don't think there'll be much that we'll have to interject into this, but this is what they're saying because this is all quoted. I think now we're finally reaching a point where we're seeing more misfires than regular fires, and at some point this industry is going to have to change course. Not the industry. All right, the industry doesn't have to change course unless you're talking about the new guard industry, because all of the big IPs, all of that, they're still trying to put out games under those things that where consumers, fans absolutely love it. They're hyped for the new thing. But the people who created those industries and those, not the industries, but the people who created those IPs that got all those fans no longer work for the company. So that's not really what has to change course. But I guess, we're splitting hairs over that. But Warner's going to further in this direction. Fewer, bigger franchises. Destined to fail, no doubt in my mind. That shit ain't going to work out. Now, this is just his own opening statement. So he is talking with someone named Jita. And that person says, I hate to re-up the Avowed conversation, but I'm seeing my friends like Chris Person and Luke Plunkett rap on Avowed. And the solution is not fewer, bigger projects, more adequately scaled projects with clear parameters. Now, I can agree with this. more adequately scaled project with clear parameters. Yes, you can't be a jack of all trades and master of none. You need to do, oh my goodness, this is not going to come off as eloquently as I want it to, but you need to do what's good for the game, what's good for the franchise. You need to stay true to the parameters of the franchise. That doesn't mean you throw $200 million into something where you're making a freaking black samurai, whereas arguably that person never existed. And if it did, that person was never a samurai. That's what we need. It's not limiting the flagship game to once every 5 years or whatever. You should have more than one flagship if you have an entire company going for this. Now, let this not go under the radar. Whenever you have Monolith, they have multiple different teams working on multiple different games at any given time. Now, there will be a specific team going for this AAA game, going for this giant franchise, and they will be set off in their own thing. They're not working on other things. They're focused specifically on that. But you also have other employees there that are working on smaller games. That's kind of how this stuff works. Because what if the big game fails and you have multiple middle to smaller size games to succeed? You could still keep everyone employed. Everyone has misses. Everyone also has hits. As long as you stay true to the gaming aspect of it. I lost my place. It's having fewer flagship games and not resting all your economic and cultural expectations on one thing. That's never going to work. Why not be pleasantly surprised by a medium-sized game doing really well? Why can't we have both? Why is there a one or the other? Why can we not have both? Specifically for the reasons that I just stated. Now, Microsoft has repeatedly said, despite what people on the internet will try to tell you, that they are happy with avowed sales. Bullshit. And the developers seem to be very happy with how the game is being received by players and not weird people on YouTube. Weird people on YouTube, the people who actually play the games and aren't paid to give you lofty responses. Which is, I can't help but think that Microsoft, which is primarily a company that makes software and software products, does understand how to scale these things. They are basically relegating themselves to production and distribution. They did this for a reason, because no matter what, if you have to go through them for your games to be played, they will get a cut, whether it's good or bad. This is exactly why Microsoft is taking that route. Why wouldn't you look to other industry leaders in this instead of looking to entertainment industry models that doesn't make sense with how video games are created? Specifically for that reason. They were tired of hedging their bets. They were tired of basically making deals with these companies that changed their core of what they wanted the games to be. Now, they already had contracts with them. Let's just look at 343, Bungie, Halo Studios and everything like that. Started out really great. Microsoft exclusive. Microsoft made bank off of that. Then they changed what was true to the Halo franchise. Microsoft saw that. It was like, you know what? We're going to milk the last little bit out of this, but this is a precursor for why we need to get out of this, why we need to get out of this industry and instead just market and distribute everything, because most of these are played on Microsoft platforms. Most go through Windows. So we're getting the money either way. Either way, we're going to get our cut. We just have way less of a risk involved. Now, Nathan comes back to say that there is that meme of I want smaller games with worse graphics, blah, blah, blah. No, I don't think really people say that. I want smaller games with worse graphics. That's not really the thing. I think what people are mostly saying is that they want good mechanics and good gameplay. And if the graphics have to take the toll, if they have to take the brunt of what gets cut from it, they're okay with that as long as the game plays well, as long as it has a good story, and as long as it's fun and they can keep revisiting it. He goes on to say, I want mid-sized games that are scaled to a relatively sane degree, that are not trying to be everything for everyone, because A, nothing can be everything for everyone. That's the first true thing you said. And B, the games that are functionally that already exist. You're not going to make another one. Valorant is pretty... Could you go on to League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Valorant, and Fortnite? You do realize that Valorant is pretty new. Valorant is pretty new. League of Legends already has a spinoff. It's called Smite. And by the way, that is still doing very well. Valorant is new. So yes, you can always poke your head into the space. You just have to have a good game that's not buggy. something that people latch on to. Let's look at Marvel Rivals. That's a new thing. These people don't seem to get it. It seems like they don't seem to be getting it. But these big companies believe that if you just pump enough money into something, you can overcome all of life's problems. That's a wild assumption. And time again, they fail, and the money's no longer imaginary. There are real, tangible repercussions in terms of how it affects people who worked on these products. They don't have jobs anymore. The only people who are unaffected were the effing executives, and they get to keep making these stupid decisions. Now, I'm going to just stop them right there because that is absolutely retardation. Their conversation. They're basically just fluffing each other. They're ready for that big nut scene. That's what they're ready for the money shot all over the face. But it's not going to happen. So that everything that I've gotten from that small bit of the conversation is that they're literally just puffing themselves up. Their ideas are right. They are only looking at it from one way, and that is their way. What they're not looking at it from is basically the gamer's perspective. That's all that I'm getting from this. What are you guys getting from it? There's so much more that could be said on this matter, but quite honestly, going into that would be like a 30-minute video, and I don't have the time for that right now. Y'all leave it down in the comment section below. This is Multi. It's great to see y'all again. I know I've been sick for the last 2 days. It's been torture, much like most of the AAA games that have been coming out recently. Y'all have a great day. Love ya. Bye-bye.